This is Anarchast.
Hi everybody, welcome to another edition of Anarchast, your home for anarchy on the internet. I have Gabriela Lyons coming in from the central coast of California. She says we probably never heard of where she lives, so we won't even bother mentioning it. And she's does many interesting things. We're going to talk to her all about it. She's on Voluntarist Vixens, something she's helped found, which is something we're interested in, this being a pretty young female anarchist month, and a number of other things. So there's going to be lots to talk about. How are you, Gabriela?
I'm well, sir. How are you?
I'm doing very good, thank you. And very first question we always ask is, how did you become an anarchist?
It all started with Atlas Shrugged. That was my first awakening, so to speak, that made me realize that I was carrying all these contradictory statist principles. And that led me into the whole individualist philosophy. And over time, I began to meet other fans of the objectivist philosophy, and they helped me through the natural progression. I guess they say the difference between a minarchist and an anarchist is 6 months. That's about right.
And are you still consider yourself an objectivist, or?
No.
Okay.
I consider myself a full-blown Rothbardian voluntarist anarchist. I've left objectivism behind.
Excellent. Let's talk about, so you're on this thing called Voluntarist Vixens. Tell us about that.
The Voluntarist Vixens project, I feel completely blessed to have been allowed to participate in this project. It's a sister project to the I Am an Individual campaign, which Eric Bigelow and Lindsay O'Keefe started. And it's a really just absolutely brilliant movement. It gets individuals directly involved in spreading the ideas of libertarian principles, voluntarist philosophy. And I'm really excited where this is going. We're doing all sorts of fun things with the Facebook page and a book coming out, and some magazine ideas and all sorts of things.
That's fantastic, and we'll ask you for all the URLs to all those things later. What's the I Am an Individual all about, and when did you start that?
I can't even remember exactly how I found it. It started as a Facebook page that Eric and Lindsay put up, and it began with these memes where fans of the page could submit a quote, an original quote, and they would turn it into a meme. And so they were going all over Facebook right now. And I went a little overboard contributing content for these, and so then they contacted me and said, "Hey, would you like to participate?" And I was completely on board. I was like, finally, I have something I can do. I have a purpose, and I can, geared toward what I'm passionate about. So it was an absolute dream to be able to participate in this project.
That's fantastic. And how many people are on your page, or what kind of audience do you have?
Right now, I believe I'm an individual campaign. We're up over 2,000 fans and growing. Voluntarist Vixens, we're quickly approaching 1,500 and growing. So it's really spreading. It's really exciting.
That's great. And we rarely get the opportunity to talk about this subject because we haven't had, before this month, a lot of female anarchists on, and this is obviously a very sensitive topic. But I did see that you were interviewed by Ben Lowry, who was also on Anarchast a few months ago, and you talked about a topic where you were raped, and maybe you can talk about that from an anarchist perspective.
Particularly, my anarchist perspective comes into play here with partially my healing process and the way I now perceive our legal system in terms of things like rape and murder, theft, all of it. Back when I was raped, I was still very much of a statist ideology and of a very collectivist ideology. I did not feel that I had any self-worth as an individual, and that basically I had to submit to what was being done to me because I did not own myself. I belonged to society. Getting away from that kind of idea was the biggest thing that helped me put the tragedy and the traumatic experience behind me and be able to find life and happiness again. And it's incredible how just focusing on my own individual worth and seeing the contradictions in my general thinking was able to help me come to a place where I not only was able to rationalize what had happened to me and put it behind me, but also just to find a general happiness in my life. Having things very black and white and concrete and no contradictions, it's amazing. You just, you wake up every day with a smile on your face because you look at the world the right way. And now, with regards to my anarchist beliefs, I look at the legal system, and in particular, one of the things people always ask me is, why didn't you take your rapist to court? Why didn't you put him in jail? There's a lot of answers to that. One is mainly I wasn't ready. I couldn't face it myself, so how was I going to face him in a courtroom full of strangers? There's just no doing that. But the bigger issue, obviously, is our current legal system would not have done any benefit whatsoever, because they would have wanted to make him pay his debt to society, whereas he did not commit a crime against society. He committed a crime against an identifiable victim. In our current system, the victim just gets lost in the shuffle. So in a proper voluntarist anarchist society, we would be focusing on compensating the victim, protecting the victim, and making the criminal pay his debt to his victim.
That's fascinating. I've never actually heard it said that way before. I've never even thought about it. Of course, anarchy, the real root of it is that we own ourselves. And of course, it's very fascinating to hear that. I've never heard it said that way. That's really interesting, because that is true, that they have to pay their debt to society. There is no society. There's just people. And that's incredible, and I'm really going to publicize this as another reason to get into anarchism is for rape victims. That's fascinating. I'm really amazed by this. Is there any more you can tell me about your thoughts on what women should be doing or anything like that? This is just fascinating. I'm actually blown away.
This is one of my bugbears with the current. The rape support groups, they have a great intention, but I think they go about it entirely the wrong way. So I really do not align myself with any of them. They seek to they all want to attack the men and blame the men, and they don't seem to have a real objective viewpoint to what actually happened. What I would like to see is not even just women, but people in general, is encouraging people to realize that you are an individual and you have self-worth. You do not belong to society, and you do have a right to defend yourself. That was one of my big problems, is I didn't think I had a right to defend myself against what was happening to me. So if we were encouraging women to learn their own self-worth, encouraging them to learn ways to defend themselves, encouraging them to own and carry firearms, for instance. I know the gun issue is a big issue right now, but I can't even imagine how many rapes would be stopped if women were encouraged to defend themselves more consistently, or to carry some sort of weapon to defend themselves.
Absolutely, and it is really screwed up when you think about it, isn't it? That so many people think that the police are going to protect them. The police aren't going to be there at that exact moment when it happens. For the most part, they just show up an hour or two later and write down what happened for you and give you a hot cup of coffee sometimes, or sometimes even abuse you themselves. And it's just a terrible system. I definitely recommend that women think more like this. We've actually had one of the greatest people in our movement, Wendy McElroy, who's actually a good friend of mine now. She was on Anarchast, and she talks a lot about this. Have you read any of her writing?
I have not, no.
Oh, she's excellent. You should definitely look that up, and we'll put some links to it below. She calls herself an anarchist feminist, but she's not a feminist in the terms that most people are used to hearing. She's not trying to protect women in a social way. She's trying to make women make them realize they're individuals, and that's really interesting what you just pointed out. this whole concept of calling 911. I watch so many YouTube videos nowadays. You see all these IHOP fights and Denny's fights and Walmart fights, and the first thing, as soon as someone even touches someone, everyone says call 911. It's, well, why don't you take responsibility for what's going on yourself? Why are you looking for someone else? And it's not such a bad thing to look for someone else to be involved. If you had a private security firm or a bodyguard or had your own weapon or way of defending yourself, you wouldn't have to do those things. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really something that people need to get their head around. And it's kind of funny nowadays because because the U.S. is sort of falling apart because of all their debt and wars. There's actually been a sheriff recently who just came out and said, just get a gun and protect yourself because we're not going to be able to protect you.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah, so it's something that's it's a really interesting topic, and people hopefully can get their head more around it over time. I've actually had a personal experience myself. I think almost everyone has. Rape is a lot more widespread than I think most people know about. It's quite common, actually, and I've actually been very involved with people that I care about. And I actually was in a foreign country, and first thing we did was we went to the police. It was really sad. But then again, we live in a statist system, so if I went and did something, I'd be the one in jail. If I went and actually, I went to that rapist and said, you have to repay this somehow, or I want some sort of, I want some sort of justice to be done here. And if I actually, in the heat of the moment, got physical or even killed that person, I'd be the one in jail for decades. And it's really a warped system that way.
Absolutely.
Which I know you can understand. So, why don't you tell everyone about Voluntarist Vixens and I'm an Individual and where they can get more information and follow more of your things you're doing. Okay.
Probably the primary website is going to be IamAnIndividualCampaign.com. And there are links on that website to the Facebook pages and some other really great information regarding the libertarian philosophy. We are currently working on putting together a book of essays that different individuals have submitted, and lots of really brilliant essays. I've read a few of them. This is going to be a really fantastic book. It's just a compilation of lots of different topics, but all about spreading the ideas of voluntarism and individual philosophy. There are some ultimate goals of things like putting out flyers. We do the voluntary roundtables, which are a lot of fun. There's some videos on YouTube where we get different individuals together on a conference call kind of like this and discuss a particular topic. Like we've discussed crime. I think there was one just done about intellectual property. There's going to be one done about homeschooling versus public schooling. So those are a lot of fun. It makes it really nice and dynamic, and I'm really glad Eric came up with this idea. It gets people really directly involved. And then tied to that, obviously, is the Voluntarist Vixens project. We are right now working on putting together a magazine of articles that people will submit, photographs, poetry, whatever, and we're going to try to get that all put together. And that particular movement is the idea of getting women more involved in the movement, in the voluntarist philosophy, because obviously we seem to be a bit outnumbered, so we're trying to encourage women to join the philosophy and become more involved and seek out the information. There's lots of great people out there who are definitely willing to help and to talk and to lead you through that process of turning away from statist philosophy. And it's not an easy process. I remember it was very hard to let go of some of those ideas, but we're all out there and we're willing to talk and to listen and to help.
Yeah, so we're definitely on the same track with our pretty young female anarchist month here at Anarchast. You brought up a great point about how there aren't a lot of outspoken female anarchists. Do you have any thoughts on why that is?
I'm not sure really, except for the idea that the only thing I can think is that women more than men are kind of geared towards this idea in our current society that they have to be servants of others and think of others as opposed to themselves. And it seems like the kind of general overriding ideology that we throw at women these days is that you can't be a self-sufficient, independent individual. You have to rely on others, but you also have to serve others. So there's the whole collectivist ideology built into that. So it seems like it's harder for women to kind of make that transition. Maybe that's wrong. That's just an observation I've made. I know it was hard for me because that was exactly what I went through, was just this idea that I have to be there to serve my family, serve my parents, serve my siblings, and, you know, boyfriend, society, whatever it is. So it's hard to kind of step back and say, you know what, it's my life. And I have my needs, and I need to put myself at the top of my priority list, because if I don't do that, the rest of it just is going to go by the wayside.
Yeah, it's been absolutely fascinating talking to you, and I really appreciate coming on with us. And when you have that book out, maybe we'll have you on again and we can talk about the book and everything else you're doing. So thank you very much, Gabriela, for being on with us.
Thank you.
Oh, it's our pleasure. And that's it for Anarchast, your home for anarchy on the internet. Peace, love, and anarchy.